Hey guys, and welcome to my first ever Facebook Live from Hope Education Services. My name is Jessica Leichtweisz, and I'm the CEO of Hope Education Services. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you've been following my videos for the long time, and if not, welcome. So I have a little secret to let you in on, okay? So here's the deal. So I've been posting videos every week for a year, but the truth is, all of the videos, they were recorded on the same day back in the beginning of the year. And I love that method because it allows me to get the videos professionally done for you, so they're really high quality and you can enjoy them and share them. But what I've found is that oftentimes things are coming up every week that people are asking questions about, and I have answers and solutions that can help you and your family, and I'm finding myself unable to give them to you because I don't have a recording day set up. So I'm starting now what I call What's Going On Wednesday. So every Wednesday, I'm going to come to you in a Facebook Live, and I'm going to discuss an important issue that's going on in the area of autism and special education. So tonight we're going to be talking about something I wish we didn't have to be talking about, but right now it's on the hearts and minds of every parent who has a child with autism or special needs, especially for families who have children who are nonverbal. And that's what's going on in schools with law enforcement agencies, that children are being restrained against a parent's consent and oftentimes without a parent's knowledge. And what can you do about it? You know, I work with clients every day, and one of the most scary things that parents talk to me about is, I don't know what's going on in school. My child can't communicate. He can't tell me what's happening. You know, he can't express his needs to somebody else. And unfortunately, we see now on the news, it seems like almost every day, a news story of a child being abused or being restrained in a way that seems to be harmful and unnecessary. So why is it happening? What can I do about it? And how can I make sure that my child is not one of those children that are suffering from that restraint? So I'm going to give a little bit of background about, for me, my take on the use of restraint, and then we're going to discuss some of the federal laws in place, some of the state laws in place, and what you can do in order to make sure your child is safe. So my take on restraint. So for me, I've been practicing ABA and been working with children with autism for over 10 years. I have my own private practice now, but I worked under the supervision of an agency, which I'm very grateful for a long time, for 8 years. And here is what I have to say. It is almost never appropriate to restrain a child, especially when you're working with a child one-on-one. My take is that if you have to restrain a child, you're doing something wrong. Now, I have physically restrained a child twice in my entire 10-year career. And both times it was because the child was doing something that was putting themselves in a very serious physical harm. So I had one child who was trying to elope. We were walking on the street, and I did use a physical restraint because he was going to run into traffic. Obviously, right? Any parent would want you to protect their child from getting hit by a car. The only other time in my entire career I used a restraint is a child who was banging their head against the floor. It was concrete. I thought that they were in danger, so I restrained them. But it seems like left and right, kids are being restrained for tantrums. They're restrained for not doing their work. They're restrained because they don't want to sit somewhere in school. And I have gone into a lot of classrooms, and I even taught in the classroom for a short period of time. I have seen restraints misused time and time and time again, where for some teachers and for some schools, it seems like the go-to policy. The child's not listening, let's restrain them. Hey, I threw a pencil, let's restrain them. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And so it happens a lot, and this is something that families need to be aware of. So what are the laws in place? So the law that is really protecting most children with special needs and special education is the IDEA. That's the federal law. The last one is 2004, the last update. And that is all the federal guidelines for that services, all of the schools with disabilities, they have to follow those federal guidelines. Unfortunately, they're very vague and specific. It entitles a child to FAPE, a free and appropriate public education, but it doesn't doesn't give a whole lot of guidelines as for what that is. Now, in terms of dealing with behavior, there's a few important things that it does discuss. The main one when we're talking about restraints is the fact that in their child who has a behavior issue as a result of a disability, you need to be having interventions, behavior plans in place that are treating that disability. So it's a very proactive approach. In other words, the teacher needs to know what to do if the behavior occurs, and it has to be like someone like myself who's trained in behavior, has studied behavior to write those behavior plans, someone qualified, knowing what to do in order to reduce the behavior and keep everyone safe. Now, in terms of whether restraints are allowed, in some states, yes, restraints are allowed. In some states, no, restraints are not allowed. And in most states, the rule is that restraints only allowed if a child's in imminent danger or they're endangering somebody else. So, what do you do? As a parent, the first thing that you want to do is find out what your state's policy is. It does vary from place to place. So unfortunately, I can't come on here and give you an answer as to whether or not restraint's okay and when it can be used. But the information's really simple to find. If you just Google, for me, I live in New Jersey, and the policy for New Jersey on restraints, now in New Jersey, the policy is restraints are okay if a child is causing them harm, themselves harm or harm to someone else. You can restrain a child. In different states, it actually can be a go-to response. It's allowed still. In some states, there's losses you cannot, and obviously exceptions are imminent danger, like life-threatening issues. But the policy does change. So the first step is, just Google what is your state's policy. Now the next step, and even if you live in a state where restraint is not allowed to be used or it's allowed only in imminent danger, you want to contact your local school district or school, and you want to find out what their policy is on restraints. Now the reason that is so important, some school districts and some schools do have the policy that they're required to report it to a parent if a child is restrained in a classroom. Some schools actually do not have that policy. Now, if they tell you, yes, they're using restraints, there are other important questions. So that is, what system of restraint are they using? Are they doing like what we saw in the news this week where they're handcuffing a child by his arm because it couldn't even fit around his wrist to a chair? I mean, that's, to me, that's absolutely insane. For me, I'm trained in two different methods of restraints. There's different ways that you can restrain a child safely, and every year I'm certified to know how to do that, and every year I take very seriously the fact that I go and I get these certifications to make sure that in the event of an emergency I had to restrain a child, I could do it in a way that's safe for them, that wouldn't cause them any sort of harm or physical pain. Now, the other thing you want to ask parents about when you're doing these conversations with the school district is, okay, well, what if you're physically guiding or prompting my child, but without going into full-blown restraint? So that may sound a little strange, so I'm going to back up and I'm going to explain exactly what I mean. So most of the time, whether you're using, for example, Handle with Care, there's different steps before you restrain a child. So you would actually start using physical guidance. You might first try just holding their hands, and then you might, put their hands behind their back, and then eventually you would use a full-on restraint where the child is fully restrained. Well, some schools allow you to get through some of the steps of restraining a child without fully restraining a child, and they say, okay, well, as long as the child's not fully restrained, well, then we don't have to tell the families, as long as they're only partially restrained. And, for some of the different methods of restraint, it can be very different as to what that actually looks like. So you want to know exactly what's happening in your classroom, and you want to know, when you're going to be told about what's happening. You can also ask to visit classrooms. Now, more and more and more classrooms are actually having cameras in them, which I think is a fantastic and fabulous idea. It's wonderful. I always encourage parents to record my therapy sessions and to watch it. You can get great tips from them. I encourage parents to sit in on sessions. Now, you can't do that when you're in a school. Obviously, you can't just show up and sit in your child's classroom, but it's a fantastic thing. If your child is in a room where children are being restrained, you should be requesting for the school district that you want cameras in the classroom so that in the event your child is restrained, you can watch and see what happens. You can see, okay, and sorry, I keep getting notifications, I keep closing these, but you can see, is the is it being followed? Is the restrained steps, are they being done in a way that's safe? Or unfortunately, many times I've seen in classrooms, schools have the policies in place, but the truth is you have these grown adults that are just manhandling and pushing children in chairs, and it's unacceptable. And especially in today's world where technology is making everything so transparent, which is incredible and wonderful, it's really up to the parent to make sure that they are looking out for their kids and they're finding out what's really going on in the classroom. So now the other thing, the last kind of bit of information I can give to a parent is to send in, if you think, okay, you know what, I do not want my child restrained. Now, a lot of times, like we saw, and I fortunately haven't seen this extreme in my personal 10 years of practicing, but a lot of these videos that are going viral on the internet, kids are being restrained for things like stimming behaviors where they're stomping their feet on the grounds, and the people that are restraining them, they might be classroom aides, or they might be teachers in the cafeteria, or they're security officers, as we've seen this week, who don't really understand what the behaviors are that kids with autism exhibit, so they're not aware of it. You can send in a letter to your school district requesting that your child is not restrained. Now, you can actually Google form letters as to what that looks like, and I encourage parents to do that. Like I said, for me, I don't really think it's appropriate to restrain a child. Now, obviously, like anyone else, if a child's in extreme danger, right, if the child's running in front of a car, of course you're going to just instinctively, right, grab them, like what adult wouldn't, even if it's not your child, if it's some random kid on the street, right, you're going to, any adult is going to do that instinctively. It's your action. But the way that kids are being restrained in schools, it's not acceptable today. And we really have to do something about it. People, especially educators, you have to stand up for your children and protect your classroom as well. And that's something that I'm really, really passionate about, making sure that all the students that I teach, that they're safe, that they're happy, and that they're being treated in a way that's humane and respectful. We have to remember, just because a child can't talk, that doesn't mean they have nothing to say, and they can't stand up and they can't talk for themselves. So we have to be that voice for them. And so that's what I plan to do on these weekly videos, is to be the voice for families and children about what things are going on and how we can help you to really help your child to live the best and most successful lives that they possibly can. So I really, really hope that this was useful for you. This video is going to be up on my Facebook page. I'm also going to be posting it to my YouTube page. In order to access my YouTube page, just go to parenttrainingvideos.com. That'll take you right to my page. Every week, at least once a week, we're posting a video about different topics, and now we have these amazing What's Happening Wednesdays, where I'm going to be really just paying attention to the news, and we'll go over like news events that come out, articles that come out, anything that comes out, anything that's relevant. If you have any questions that you want me to address, now that I'm doing these wonderful weekly videos on every Wednesday, this is your opportunity to ask me questions, and I will answer them. And I've gotten some questions in the last week. I've had dozens of parents all around the world, I'm in over 100 countries with my videos, asking me questions, and I'm going to be drawing from those questions and deciding what these weekly topics are going to be. So my email, it is jessica@jessicaleichtweisz.com. I know the spelling can be really confusing, so just check it out in the comments section in the video, or the description of the video. It will be there. Now, the last thing that I want to say before I close this out is just a disclaimer. This information, this is not intended to treat or cure any illnesses. This should not be constituted as medical advice, and that watching this video does not establish a client relationship between you and myself. So I would just urge you to use these videos to really help educate yourself on what you can do for your child. And if you have any questions, anything that is an emergency, please be sure to contact the behaviorist that's treating your family, and anything that's an emergency, please make sure to contact your pediatrician and ask him or her for some advice and questions. But if I can help you, I promise I will. So thank you so much for tuning in to my very first Facebook Live from Hope Education Services. I hope you make it an amazing night and the rest of your week, and I look forward to answering the rest of your questions.